Alright guys, welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to be looking at how to install a 3.5 pound trigger connector for your Glock. I went ahead and picked up a Lone Wolf trigger connector for $15.99 at my local gun show today, which was a great deal and something that I've been looking forward to doing for quite some time. The benefits of having a 3.5 pound trigger pull is the lighter trigger pull actually adds to more accuracy. It allows less room for error when pulling the trigger, and it makes for a nice, clean, crisp trigger pull that you just can't get from a heavier trigger. Not that the Glock factory, that there's anything wrong with that, but I want to increase the groups at the range, and also I want to be more effective with my shot placement. So I chose to go ahead and do the 3.5. If this is your carry piece, I'm going to just warn you that there is a higher error or a higher risk that you could accidentally discharge while pulling the trigger. So just keep that in mind and make an educated decision when deciding whether or not to pick this part up. Okay, now for the installation. As far as what you'll need, obviously you'll need the 3.5 pound trigger connector. You'll need a punch of some sort to work with the Glock punches to take the pins out. Something that you can pry with, some cloth, and something to retain your parts in this case a bowl. Alright, the first thing to do is make sure that your weapon is safe. So I'm going to go ahead and ensure that I don't have any ammunition in there. Okay, and now go ahead and just take the slide off of the frame, and you can place the slide away, and we will go ahead and work on the frame from this point forward. The first thing that you want to do is remove the pin in the back. So I'm just going to go ahead and take that out and put that in a safe place so you don't lose that. Okay, the next pin that I'm going to take out is this one right here. This is the main pin, and you may have to pull your trigger forward to relieve some pressure on this. There you go. And again, put that in a safe place. And lastly, we're going to take this pin out. And for this one, if it's sticking on you, what I like to do is move the slide catch around and see if that relieves some pressure. Okay, and once you have your third pin out, it's time to take your slide catch and put that in a safe place. And then what we want to do is actually take the block off. And what I do is usually reach behind it here and then pry it out. Based on how lubricated your internal parts are and how many times you've taken this apart really depends on how easy this part comes out. Sometimes it really takes some pressure to get that out of there. Okay, set that aside with the rest of your pieces, and now we're left with our frame, and we can just pull the trigger group right out of there. Okay, I'm going to set my frame aside and we'll be using that for later. Okay, so now what we need to do is get the trigger connector out of there. First, we have our trigger bar that we're going to need to get out of the way. And if you can see, the part that we have, we actually need to, is sitting in front of the trigger connector, so we need to rock that out of there. What I usually do is kind of go down and then pull it out, and that should bring it straight out of there. One thing that you need to try to do is keep it connected to the trigger spring. And if you can see that right there, it's just going to be hanging right on there. If it, for whatever reason, does accidentally disconnect from the trigger spring, just make sure that you are putting it right with the string pointing the right way when you put it back together. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, we have access to the trigger connector, and there's a couple different ways that you can take that out, and the way that I'm going to show you today is by prying it out. So I'm going to take a pry, in this case my blade, however you can use a screwdriver. The main point is it has to be thin enough to get inside this little tiny gap that's there. Okay, Once it's in there, just carefully pry it out. You don't want to do any type of damage here. In fact, what I do is just lift it up just high enough so I can get my my fingers in there and just pull it out the rest of the way. Okay, and now you have your trigger connector out of there. This is actually my 3.5 pound one. I had already installed it. But at this point, what you would do is take the one that you had purchased out of the package. If I can get that open, my hands are all lubed up now. Okay, so this is my Glock factory one, and you can actually see the difference between the two of them here. So with the Lone Wolf one, it's actually profiled a little differently, and there's also some subtle differences in the angles here that are being used. One thing that I do suggest doing if you have the time is polishing this part up on the outside here where metal touches metal. It's going to create a smoother trigger pull, and you're going to really notice a difference. Okay, so when you take your factory one out, you want to retain and keep that, okay, because you always want to have your factory parts around in case if you decide to sell the weapon, or you decide that you do not like the pull, or for whatever reason you want to keep hold of the factory part. Now, it's not that expensive of a part, but it's always nice to have that around. With your 3.5 pound trigger connector, you are now going to place that back down into the recession here. So push that down and just give it a nice some pressure, downward pressure, and it should go right into place. We are going to reverse the process now, so the trigger bar goes on the outside of the connector, and you are going to go down and rock it into place. Okay, and it may not sit perfectly at first, but it will once you actually get that back into the frame. So again, I'm just going to show you real quick the method of rocking it in and out, because that can be tricky. But once you get the hang of it, it really goes smoothly. Okay, so now we have our part installed, and we are going to take our frame and drop the trigger group right back down into our frame. Okay, and just push it right down into there, and just make sure that everything is fitting in there correctly. We're going to reverse the process of putting the pins in. So I'm going to put my back pin in first. And what I suggest doing here is putting a little downward pressure on there and sliding this pin right into place. Now, I've done this a lot, so my pins have been in and out of the frame quite a few times. It actually may take more pressure when you do it with your gun. We're going to take the block and put that back in. Okay. And this is a good time to mention that all the parts that we have just been working with should be properly lubricated. Mine are already lubricated, but when you have this apart, take the opportunity to clean and then re-lubricate with your lubrication of choice. Mine's Frog Lube because it does a fantastic job. But again, this part was already all lubricated. Okay, with the block back in, we're going to take our main pin and slide that in there just enough, and I'm going to put my slide catch in there, and the slide catch has actually a slot that it can go into all the way over to the left. You'll actually, if you look down in here, you may not be able to see it. Let's see if I grab this. Right down in there are some slots, and for the slide catch, it's the one all the way over on the left, and you want to get that in there. Okay, so I'm going to push that in. Okay, and once that's in, I go ahead and put my main pin back in there and kind of work it in. You might have to, just as in taking it out, kind of work it in. Now I'm going to try tapping it in, as it's giving me a hard time here. Okay, now that they're all, I have all my punches in and they are even, I'm just going to go ahead and put my slide back on. Rack it, pull the trigger. Oh yeah, that's the ticket right there. So now that's a much lighter trigger pull. I'm going to check the reset, so hold the trigger to the back, rack it, and you can hear the audible pop for the reset. And then that trigger pull is just fantastic. So this is a very cheap modification to your Glock. Once you get the hang of it, it can be done in under 5 minutes, and it's completely reversible and really improves accuracy. So hopefully you were able to follow along at home and found this tutorial helpful, and thanks for watching.